I'm Amy, Head of Learning and Development and Support at Rachel.
Welcome.
So, what is a credit policy? Types of credit policy, and there's two of them that I'm going to talk about, a lenient credit policy and a conservative policy, and then components of the company credit policy. And take note again what I'm saying here. I'm talking about the company's credit policy, not the credit control department's credit policy. I know it's always been that the credit manager drafts the document. I've drafted many of these. However, the first thing I do once I've drafted it, I remember when I started at Adcorp, they didn't have. So then I drafted it, and then I went to the COO and the CEO and the CFO of the business, and I said, "This is what your company credit policy should look like. We need to roll it out to the business. So look at it, give me input, tell me what I need to change." They did all that. Then we went to the heads of the businesses that were part of the company at that stage. Each one of them had to accept and sign that they received it, and they then had to flow it down inside the business. Now, that's exactly what you guys need to do. If you don't have a credit policy, I suggest you do get one very, very quickly. Or if you do have one and it's standing in your cupboard and it's about this thick with dust, take it, dust it off, look through it, and make sure that that document is relevant. At least every 6 months, you should check that. All right, so what is a credit policy? A credit policy is essential for every business extending goods or services rendered on credit, selling it to someone else on credit. Must be drafted with the following line: laws of your country. Now, as we all know, there are many laws in everyone's country that are different, but in South Africa, we've got very specific rules. We've got the National Credit Act, we've got the Consumer Protection Act, which of course is your sole proprietors, and so on can go on. The company's own operational risks. What do? Good example, if you're in the liquor industry, operational risk, you've got to trade with someone who has got a valid liquor license. Pharmaceutical industry, there's certain of those that have to have a pharmaceutical license, and all of these kind of things. And what other own risks, operational risks are there? If you don't deliver on time, is there penalty clauses? Who can you sell your goods to? Who may you sell your goods to? Who may you buy from? Where may you buy from? All of these things are operational risks. And you've got to understand these risks and talk about these risks and how you mitigate these risks inside your policy. Of course, terms of sale, what are my terms? And of course, that are very much driven by your margins. Recently, I reviewed a financial statement for a company on behalf of one of our clients, and their DSO was very good. I think it was about 40, but their DPO, the days payable, was 67 days. So it means that they collect their money quickly, but they don't pay their creditors very quickly. They take 60 days. Now, if your terms are 30 days and you're getting paid in 60 days and your margin is 3% or 4%, you are giving your product away for nothing. You are chasing turnover. And therefore, you will find that your business is not making money. Although it looks like it because it's got a huge turnover, but your profit margin is going to be very small because it's going to be eaten up because it takes so long for your debtors to pay you, or your creditors. All right? So there's a problem there. Okay. And then, of course, your cash management. How do you manage your cash? Who's accountable for what part of the cash management? Now, what is cash management? It's money coming in, money going out. Now you say, Martin, this is the credit policy. Why do we manage money going out? Someone needs to understand who's accountable for understanding what cash is going to go out and by when does these figures need to put together so that you can understand what needs there are on the company's credit control department and what cash needs to be collected by when to meet those needs. So if you are, and as I'm using Adcoop again as an example, they're in the staffing business, so they have weekly payrolls, bi-weekly payrolls, monthly payrolls, and that has got a certain cash connotation to it, and it requires certain cash input. So therefore, certain amounts of money needs to be collected at very specific times. And if that is not collected, of course, you're going to put the business on the straight. And therefore, that is very important as to that component. What is cash flow management? Where is it done? How is it done? And how is it delivered to the teams that are dependent on that? And then, of course, your risk management, your T's and C's, your terms and conditions, your industry, your regions, all of those kind of things needs to be capsulated inside there. How do you deal with those various different risks? And when you assess risk, how do you assess risk? Okay, so if you're selling to someone that uses your product directly and that's finish and fly, or they sell it, or they use it to make something else, that's good, you understand, and then they will pay you. But if it is someone that is in between, in other words, they either use your product for someone else and it's performance risk based, or they sell it on to someone else and this is one client that they have and they're waiting for their payment to pay you. All of these things you need to understand when you calculate the risk. And that calculation for those various different calibers of risk should be captured inside your credit policy. Right. The credit policy does not belong to the credit or finance team. It needs to be owned and driven and lived by the whole business. So every single part of the company is just as responsible for the credit policy as what the credit control department is. Okay. Types of credit policy. There's two fundamental approaches. If you do, there's the lenient credit policy and, of course, the conservative policy. Let's look at the lenient policy first. It's very relaxed, it's very flexible, approach to extending credit, aims to attract customers with generous terms and flexible payment options. Now, years ago, when I just started in the credit department, most companies ran like this. Why? They had huge margins. They gave terms to the clients as and how they liked it, 30, 60, 45, 90. The clothing and textile industry was very much subjected to this. They had huge terms in there, and it was very, very, very generous. And of course, also generous terms and flexible payment options means that you can pay a little bit now, a little bit then, and wasn't very hardly driven in the collection. And very few collection efforts. Now and again, a phone call, say, hi, hello, Martin, how are you? You know that you still owe me money, please pay me, you know. The contrary of this, you get, of course, the conservative credit policy. And what is a conservative credit policy? Exactly what the word says. Cautious, risk-adverse approach to credit management. Focuses on minimizing credit risks and ensuring timely collections. All right. Now, most companies in today's business world have got conservative management way of managing their risk. Whether they've got a policy or not, it's driven like that. But if you have a policy, then it just makes it far better control, because then everybody understands who is accountable and who is responsible for what and by when. All right. Short credit periods. The credit period must be determined by the policy, and it is driven by your margin. If you have short margins or small margins, understand that your terms need to be short. You cannot have long terms with small margins. You are going to lose money. You're going to go out of business very soon. Lower credit limits. Credit limits are controlled strictly. They are reviewed continuously and regularly. And once again, this is where TradeShield helps you. For those of you who subscribe to TradeShield, it continually reviews your guys on a constant basis. Now, sometimes TradeShield might say maintain, or reduce. It might not necessarily say reduce because of it. There's a risk involved. It might also say reduce because the limit is not utilized. And therefore, you are leaving yourself open because you might not know that there's a risk because you haven't reviewed it. And the client is sitting with a massive credit limit and he all of a sudden runs into problems somewhere else and he then comes to you. And of course, then he utilizes your credit limit and can't pay you. Also, when you start increasing credit limits, understand what and how the industry is that you work in. Is the guy buying from you because he can't get the product from somewhere else? Is he shifting his focus or his business to you? If you're in the services industry, and I've spoken about Adcorp now, they're in the labor broking business. So are they moving their labor from another labor broker to this labor broker? Or the same, of course, with services. If you're in the accounting services or if you're in the whatever kind of services they are, the delivery services, I'm talking logistics and stuff like that. Why are they coming to you? Are they shifting their risk or are you an additional logistics business? Because if you're an additional, the risk grows. If they're shifting from one to the other, why are they shifting? Is there a problem on the other side? Or is it that you're going to render a better service at a better price for them? Then, of course, they can still handle the risk because it's not more risk. It's the same risk, but it's just shifting. And it's a little bit different in when we assess the risk. And then, of course, rigorous credit checks. And of course, that's what TradeShield does for you. It doesn't necessarily say it's rigorous, but it's consistent and continuous and accurate. And that is what's the most important part. Payment risk. Do they stick with their payment terms? Default risk. Are they defaulting somewhere else? Is there a trend that they're busy slowing down and could default on you in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months? And then, of course, profiling. Who are they looking like? And what are those people behaving like? And might they start behaving like that as well? And then, of course, proactive collection efforts. Be proactive in how you collect. Constantly be in your client's face. And please, WhatsApps and emails are not collective efforts. Proactive. It is a form of collection, but this thing, your cell phone, your landline, phone your client, be in their face. If you drive past their premises, stop there, walk in, say hello, let them know that you are constantly watching them and that they are constantly under your attention and that you drive your collections proactively. And of course, the minute your statement goes up, phone the client. Have you received our statement? Have you got all the outstanding invoices on that statement? Are those invoices correct? Are you going to pay me? When am you going to pay me? That's what proactive collection efforts are all about. Now, I know that you might say, oh, Martin, it's not always possible. Then you must redesign your credit control team so that it can become possible. All right. Someone asked me recently, how many accounts should a credit controller have? It all depends on how your invoicing structure works and how many invoices per debtor per month. All of those things will determine how many accounts a credit controller can handle in a month. All right. So those are the two policies that you
Brilliant.
can look at.
Martin, just before we move on, I've got a quick question. It's not from anyone on the chat, but it's from my side. But I just wanted to get your input on this, right? With regards to lenient and conservative policies. With all the macro issues going on in the world right now, right? With the petrol prices and the war and all of that. And for example, the logistics industry is really struggling to get diesel and transport and all that. Would it be in companies' best interest to change their credit policy according to this sort of event? Or would the credit policy remain unchanged? They just operate as usual?
It is a very, very good question, Neil. And that's why I'm saying a regular review of your policy of the macro environment. And that's what you're talking about now. So now there is something happening in the world that influences how we do business in South Africa. Should you be looking at a different way of getting your product to your client? Now, I heard the other day someone saying, well, if the petrol is so expensive and you can't use the taxis, use alternative transport. Now, that was such a stupid comment in South Africa, because what alternative transport do we have? Our trains don't work and buses run on diesel. So you have to be very careful as to how you start now looking at what you need to do. And of course, if your transport prices are going to go up, your product price or your service delivery prices, of course, are going to be adjusted as well. Have you communicated this to your client? Has your client been able, will your client again be able to accommodate that? Will they be able to pay you if you increase the price? And of course, remember now, if you increase the price, the limit is going to be eaten up quicker. So now you've got to increase the credit limit as well. So there's so many things that's going to happen at the same time when something like this happens. So be very, very, very observant around things like that. That's why I always say, that's why I always use the example of it should Anglo American close their doors in Rustenburg, what will happen? It will have a huge influence on Rustenburg. But that's not just where it is. Anything. Look, for instance, when the riots took place in the Natal area. It had a huge influence on businesses in that area, because there was a lot of businesses that was very dependent on some of those businesses that were negatively affected by the riots. And that, of course, had a different influence. Once again, be observant and make an immediate adjustment to the policy, not necessarily a permanent adjustment, but a temporary adjustment, communicated to the whole business, communicated to all your clients, so everybody understands that this is how you're going to do business for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Remember when COVID hit us? They said it's going to be 3 weeks. And what happened? It was 3 months before we started to see a bit of normality. And still then, we still didn't see complete normality. And today we still got this let's work from home thing. And now they're talking about work from home again because of the fuel price that have gone up. But all of these things play a role, and an important role, in how you mitigate and manage your credit policy. Great question, Neil, and thank you for asking.
Thank you, Martin. That answered it perfectly.
All right. The lenient credit policy. Let's talk about it. Long credit terms. The company provides customers with extended payment window, help attract more customers, encourage larger purchases. And you will find a lot of times when you start dealing with someone that have been dealing with someone else for a long, long, long time, they'll say, hey, but Neil gives me 90 days. Now you say 30 days. All right. Then the immediate question may be, to what price is Neil selling you this can of, and I'm going to sell it to you at that price. And so, in other words, I'm giving it to you at a better price, and therefore I'm expecting my payment quicker or shorter. Now, that's two differences. Minimal risk checks, of course, we've just spoken about it. They might check the once every 6 months or once a year. What does your credit policy say? How regular should you do this? How vigorously should you do this? What is required for you when you do this? And of course, for those of you who use a straight shield, those things should be then captured inside your credit policy to say, and that of course is your risk adjustment framework. If my client is this risk and that risk in the default and payment risk, this is the decisions that we make. If it's in this and this area of value, this is what we require to assess the risk and give us an answer on the credit limit. May it be bank statements, may it be financial statements, or if all of that doesn't work, do I require any personal surety? Do I require any tangible security? What is it, and how do I check my risks? High credit limits, they give huge credit limits. They don't mind. I mean, even today, still in a lot of the blue chips, there is no credit limits. You walk into a company, you see the credit limit says 99999, It means give them whatever they want. I don't think you should do that. I, of course, think that is extremely dangerous, but that's just my view. I think you should have a credit limit for whatever you deal with and trade with. Understand your risk because those blue chips can change very quickly. And fewer collection efforts, that's, of course, as we just said, it's just phone them when you think that they should be paying you by now. You've given them enough leniency. They are now 40 days overdue. Let's give them a call. Don't upset the apple cart. That kind of way of doing debt collection, which, of course, in my view, is not the correct way. All right, and then, of course, the conservative credit policy, as we've already discussed, short credit periods, it's lower credit limits, it's rigorous credit checks, and it's proactive collections. And of course, this all goes hand in hand with the whole business understanding that. So when the credit period is decided, it's decided based on the margin. So if your company gives 30 days and less terms, the salespeople should be educated and trained to say, if our margin for this specific client is this amount, then we should give him that term. But also, it goes on how your client does business. If your client is in the business of selling for cash, with other words, he's not waiting for their money, then make their terms shorter. Don't have a 30-day term, have a 14-day term, have a 7-day term. Get your money back from your client as quick as possible. Understand your client, know your client. That's what I'm saying all the time. That extended risk check. In other words, don't just look at the guy that you're selling your product to, but what are they doing with your product? Who are they selling it to? We've got quite a few of our clients that their clients sell their product for cash and they wait 30 days for their money. So that guy is sitting with your cash in his bank for 30 days, earning interest where you should be doing that. You should negotiate that a little bit better with them. Low credit limits, short, small credit limits. Why? You're driving the business hard, you're managing it well. They reach the credit limit, you do the collection effort, make a payment, and we'll give you more product. Because it's also about the risk, where they are, how they trade, when they pay, will they pay. All of these things play a role in the way you create your policy and how you manage the risk. And of course, rigorous credit checks continuously on a regular basis. What do we need? When the value is this, when the term is that, what information do we require? How do we check it? What do we use? Is TradeShield only our tool, or are we also using other tools to assist us in managing our credit policy and what we have captured inside that credit policy? And then, of course, proactive collections, active follow-ups on overdue accounts with early escalations of delinquency, protect receivables. Now, there's so many things that could play a role. I mean, I'm not just using it as an example. If you are supplying a service to the logistics industry, you supply them with pipes. And now this huge fuel price hike happens. And they already were a little bit under strain. Are they going to be able to pay you? Should you not ask for securities? Or what is it that you should do to help you to mitigate that risk? And I'm just using an example. Please, if you're in the logistic business, don't misunderstand me saying you that you're now at high risk because the petrol price went up or the diesel price went up. I'm just using it as an example. All of these things is part of being proactive in your collection efforts. Understand exactly what happens in your client and their clients' worlds that could have an influence on how they're getting paid and which could have an influence on how you're getting paid. Capsulate that in your credit policy and make it part of how you drive your collections. The points, I mean, I didn't go into all the detail and putting all the things in there because each one of you, your business is different and your policy should be different. There's certain things that should be the same because that is driven by the laws of the country and the credit acts of the country. But there's certain specific industry terms that's very specific to your industry. What happens? How does it happen? Who does what? And when do they do that? Credit evaluation, assessing a customer's credit worthiness before granting credit. How will you be doing that? If it is that you do not use TradeShield to do this for you, what do you need? A complete signed credit application, a bureau report, 3 months bank statements, financial statements, a signed personal surety. All of these things could be needs that you have or prescribed way of assessing and granting credit. Credit terms, clear payment timelines, discounts and penalties. Do you give early settlement discount? Do you charge interest? That's penalties. If not, why not? If you do, it must be in your credit policy. If you do charge interest, it must be in the terms and conditions of your credit application document. Discounts. You can't give early settlement discounts if your margins are very small, because then you're going to give your margin away. Make sure that whatever you agree upon is being well calculated and well captured inside your credit policy. Collection procedures. What are the different collection procedures? How do you deal with different types of clients? Do you visit the client? Do you just send him a mail? Do you just give him one phone call? Do you and the sales rep visit them on a monthly basis? Which level of people engage with them? At what level do you engage with their people on their side? Who do you engage with? Is it procurement? Is it finance? Is it regional wise? What and who do you see? Understand your client and map this out and make sure that you follow that process or that procedure to the letter. Otherwise, you are not going to get paid. All right? We used to refer to it as walk. Was get paid, you know exactly where that invoice is in that payment process until Treasury has confirmed we are going to pay you on that day. All right. And then, of course, credit monitoring is an ongoing review of customers' accounts and exposure. If you don't do that, you are going to burn your fingers. And that is what Neil also asked that question about now. If something changes in your client's world, how are you going to change in the way that you're going to trade with them? Are you going to change? Or won't you change? If there's a strike in the mining industry, and the majority of your clients are in the mining industry, are you going to change your behavior in the way you do credit monitoring? Just know who you're trading with and how they operate. But monitor them, because that's what that means. Not just monitoring how they pay you and are they good payers or bad payers. Monitor the client as well and their environment. Cash forecasting and management. Who's responsible for it? Well, when is it needed? And when this happens, what will happen? Are we going to put the client on stop supply if he hasn't paid us? Because that's part of your cash management. And who makes that decision? And up to what level do that decision get taken? So if a debtor's account is smaller than 25,000 and he has not paid by day 45, the credit controller can put the account on hold. If it's above 50,000, the credit manager can put the account on hold. If it's above 100,000, the financial director must put the account on hold. If it's R1 million account, the business makes the decision. I'm just using terminology. But that kind of levels of authority should be captured inside your credit policy so that everybody knows who does what. Credit terms, for instance. A salesperson should never be responsible for giving a client terms. It should be clearly defined in the credit policy. And he walks into a client and say to the client, we can sell to you on 30-day terms. If the client says, I want 60 days, says, unfortunately, our business do not use 60-day terms. And turn around and walk away. Because there's a reason why your business only gives 30-day terms. The levels of authority, we've just spoken about it. Credit notes, for instance. Who is accountable for granting credit notes or signing off credit notes? Not the credit control department. Never should a credit controller or a credit manager be accountable and responsible for doing credit notes. That is the person who raised the invoices problem. Because they made the mistake, they should correct the mistake. All right? If a credit controller has that accountability and responsibility, you are setting yourself up for some problems, because there are some of them that is going to do things that is not going to be legal. Trust me, I have come across it many a time. I have fired people for it. I had people locked up for it. It happens. Don't say it will never happen in my world. It's called segregation of duties. Make sure that it's clear who is accountable for it. And there must be timelines to it. So, query has been raised with Martin, the sales rep, for wrong pricing. He has 7 days in which to do the credit note, investigate and do the credit note or decline the request for credit. Be clear about these things. Spell it out to everyone so that everybody can understand how business does credit according to your credit policy. And that is the end of the presentation.
What a brilliant session, Martin. So many valuable insights as always. And I mean, you've done, I think this is your guys' 3rd credits policy session, and I'm still learning more every single time we have one of these sessions, which is completely mind-blowing and outstanding. So thank you for another successful session. And thank you to everyone that came. Really appreciate it, guys. I know everyone's on holiday mode, but it's nice to see that some people are still in the zone.
Join us every Thursday from 10 to 11.